Keeping protein as high as possible is one of the best ways to stay lean. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And again, I want to be clear on this. You know, a lot of times people, they think of really high protein diets and they think, hey, this is for gaining muscle. And that is absolutely true to some extent. But when you really start looking at the research, even in advanced bodybuilders, strength athletes, everything else, when this has been studied, going over about 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight doesn't actually appear to cause any more muscle growth. You know, now up to that point, it can a little bit. So I don't want people to think that I'm saying, hey, you know, 100 grams of protein a day for a large male is enough to maximize muscle growth, because it's not. But it is enough to see decent muscle growth. But you're certainly not going to be anywhere near maximum. But you start approaching around that 1.5 grams, you know, which for a lot of us is what, 140, 150 grams of protein. It doesn't seem to help you beyond that. But when it comes to body fat, very high protein intakes are extremely valuable there for both leaner gains as well as losing body fat. And there's a lot of reasons and speculation on some end of it, but a couple of things. We know that when protein goes up, body fat becomes easier to lose due to the calories in and calories out equation. And I'll get into the lean gains and protein overfeeding in a minute as far as bulking goes, or trying to bulk. But in terms of fat loss, very high proteins do a few things. Obviously, high proteins help preserve muscle. So we know that's the case. And if you can preserve muscle tissue, your metabolic rate's going to stay higher. And for every bit of weight that you lose, obviously more of it's going to be fat. So in other words, if you lose 10 pounds or 5 kilos or whatever of body weight, any of it that's muscle tissue is fat tissue that's not being lost. Okay, so that needs to be clear up front. That's kind of a big deal. Preserving muscle tissue make sure that the weight you are losing is actually body fat, because most of us aren't trying to lose weight. We're trying to lose fat. Okay, you're trying to lose the stuff that jiggles. That's usually what people are doing. But even if you don't care that much about the muscle tissue, keeping muscle tissue keeps your metabolic rate higher. Now, there's the health benefits and there's all this other stuff, but even then, your metabolism stays higher if the weight you're losing is muscle versus, or if it's fat versus muscle. So there's obviously the muscle preservation side of it, but on the actual weight loss end, there's a couple things to think about. So, you know, we think about calories in and calories out. Well, how do we control that? Well, we need to burn more calories and we need to consume less calories to lose fat. Okay? Either one of those works, but in a perfect world, we do both. Now, keeping in mind, people say, but if you do that too extreme, you start losing muscle. Well, more protein preserves the muscle. So this is kind of a win here. Okay, this is a win-win situation. But higher protein intakes do both of those things. Because number one, if you eat more protein, it is harder to overeat. Protein is satiating. Calorie for calorie, the only thing that is more satiating generally than protein tends to be fiber. Okay? And most people are only going to tolerate so much fiber. You know, you're only going to want to force down so much of it before it becomes uncomfortable and has its problems. But protein causes us to be less hungry. It reduces hunger. It fills us up extremely well on a calorie for calorie basis, at least, you know, compared to carbs and fat. And carbs, it can really vary a lot from carb to carb. So protein, it fills you up. And if you're eating less, well, this is obviously easier. And if you're not hungry, that helps, right? Because usually controlling appetite, it can be boredom eating and other stuff, and binge eating can be issues. But controlling our appetite is really the hardest part of dieting, okay? And then we do have the issue of binging because, again, protein can stop a binge. This is something I deal with clients who have binge eating issues. Is I have them keep tons and tons of lean protein around, and anytime they feel the urge to binge, I'm like, go fill up on protein. It will stop your binge. Like, just grab some cold chicken breast out of the fridge that you've got grilled up and put some mustard on it or some sort of hot sauce and just start eating it. Your appetite will suddenly go away. Your desire to binge will go down. And even if you do binge, guess what? You tend to eat less. It fills you up. But in general, yeah, if you start off, particularly when you're trying to lose fat, your first meal of the day is really, really, really high in protein, you will just eat less total calories through the day. Then we come over to the calories out. Well, protein has a very high thermic effect. So again, when people say, well, calories aren't all equal, well, yeah, I mean, obviously that's the case. Some foods cause more calories out than others. Protein causes you to burn more calories when you consume it. So again, when we talk about the calories in versus calories out equation, it's not, people say, well, it doesn't work because all calories aren't equal. Well, they affect the calories out. What you eat can literally impact how much you burn too. So it's not just the calories in. When people hear the calories in thing, they only hear the calories in, and they don't always think in terms of those calories out. Well, protein is very, very effective for helping bring up those calories out. So when you look at it from that perspective, if it causes you to eat less calories and it causes you to burn more calories, well, this is a cheat code for losing body fat. This is a cheat code. Then on top of the fact, if you do want to lose weight faster, more protein helps you preserve muscle better so you don't see the metabolic slowdown and other stuff from dieting to the same extent. This is a win. Then we come to the lean gains. We've got the protein overfeeding studies that show when people try to force feed extremely large amounts of protein, even into a calorie surplus to gain weight, they end up not gaining weight most of the time. And people say, well, if I'm trying to gain in bulk, then that's not good. Well, but they're still gaining muscle. That's the thing that they found in the protein overfeeding studies. The people gained just as much muscle as if they had been in a calorie surplus and been bulking. But they don't necessarily gain weight because they end up losing body fat. So what we tend to see in the research on that is a very pronounced recomposition effect. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, meaning you're gaining muscle while losing body fat, even sometimes in trained lifters. Well, that's a win-win. The downside is, of course, you're eating food that's unappetizing because, again, you don't get, it satiates you, okay? It removes your desire to eat to some extent when you protein overfeed. Well, so again, it's slightly less enjoyable. And then there's the cost in. So these are the downsides to protein overfeeding. And the cost of food these days and the cost of protein, eating 300 or 400 grams of protein a day can be prohibitively expensive. So then people are looking for the cheapest sources of protein if they're going to do something like this, and then they end up with foods they don't always enjoy. It's usually dry chicken breast or whey protein shakes. So that's kind of the downside to it, or those two factors. But from a physical perspective, protein overfeeding for staying lean and getting lean is almost a cheat code. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.